The world is not changed by everything hidden inside you. The world is changed by what you develop well enough to deliver. You may possess remarkable ideas, unusual intelligence, creative power, compassion, leadership, and vision, but if those things remain locked inside you, no human condition improves because they exist. Listen carefully. A gift is capacity in storage. Impact is that capacity converted into value that is useful, reliable, and transferable. That distinction is important because many people celebrate potential as though potential were an achievement. They say, I know what I could do. I know what is inside me. Wonderful. But what can another person presently receive from you? What problem becomes smaller because you arrived? What life becomes stronger because your ability was developed? Potential is not a trophy. Potential is a responsibility. Having seed does not mean you have fruit. The seed contains possibility, but possibility must enter a process. It must be planted, cultivated, protected, and brought to maturity. In the same way, your gift must pass through a process before it can become a contribution. I want you to write down 5 words: discover, develop, direct, deliver, duplicate. First, you must discover the gift. You cannot develop what you have never identified. Second, you must develop the gift. Natural ability must become disciplined competence. Third, you must direct the gift toward a genuine need. Skill without service may attract attention, but it does not create meaningful impact. Fourth, you must deliver the value consistently. One excellent moment is not yet a dependable contribution. Fifth, you must duplicate the contribution through other people. When others can carry the principle, reproduce the standard, and extend the service, your influence is no longer limited to your hands or your schedule. Now, say the sequence again. Discover, develop, direct, deliver, duplicate. These are not 5 attractive suggestions. They are 5 connected systems. If discovery is unclear, development becomes scattered. If development is neglected, service becomes unreliable. If direction is missing, talent becomes self-display. If delivery is disorganized, value cannot be trusted. If duplication never occurs, the contribution ends wherever your personal capacity ends. So ask yourself 2 questions. What do I believe is inside me? And what evidence of it can other people receive today? Before we finish, you will have a diagnostic map that identifies your present stage and the discipline required to move forward. But we must begin at the beginning. Before a gift can be developed, how do you recognize what is genuinely there and separate it from what merely sounds impressive? Discovery is not the invention of an impressive identity. Discovery is the disciplined observation of recurring evidence. You do not discover your gift by choosing a label that sounds important. You discover it by studying what repeatedly happens when you apply yourself. Evidence reveals design. Now be careful here. Admiration is not identification. You can admire a musician and not be called to make music. You can admire an entrepreneur and not be designed to build a company. You can admire a speaker because that person awakens something within you. But inspiration does not automatically indicate vocation. Sometimes you are attracted to the result while having no appetite for the process that produced it. So how do you recognize a genuine gift? Ask 4 questions. First, where do I produce unusual effectiveness? In what kind of activity do your efforts repeatedly generate results beyond what your present experience would seem to predict? Second, what demanding work gives me energy? I did not ask what is easy. Gifts still require effort, but certain forms of effort leave you deeply engaged rather than internally empty. Third, where do people consistently receive value from me? What do people understand, solve, improve, or accomplish after you contribute? Fourth, what interest survives difficulty? Excitement can disappear when recognition is delayed. A genuine gift often continues calling you back after the applause stops, after the novelty fades, and after the work becomes inconvenient. Write those 4 words: effectiveness, energy, value, persistence. Now examine your history. What kind of help do people repeatedly request from you? What do you learn unusually quickly? Which problems do you notice before others recognize them? What results follow you into different environments? Perhaps you organize confusion. Perhaps you explain complexity. Perhaps you recognize possibilities, repair relationships, design solutions, create beauty, or mobilize people. Do not begin with a title, begin with the pattern. And listen, feedback matters. Your internal conviction is important, but conviction must be tested. Compliments are clues. They are not conclusions. Some people will praise you because they love you. Others will correct you because they respect what you could become. Mature discovery listens to credible observers who can identify both strength and weakness. But do not announce an identity before you have examined the evidence. Premature applause can make you feel accomplished before you have produced anything. Protect the seed. Give it soil before you give it a stage. Now write one sentence. I appear to have the capacity to, through, so that people can. That is not your final declaration. It is your gift hypothesis. Test it. Take a small assignment. Build a simple project. Volunteer where the ability is needed. Produce something useful without demanding recognition. Then observe the result. Did value appear? Did the work engage you? What did correction reveal? What must be refined? Action will confirm some assumptions, improve others, and expose a few fantasies. That is good. Discovery is not about protecting your ego. It is about locating your responsibility. You now have something better than a flattering label. You have a testable description of capacity. But discovery does not mean readiness. Finding the seed does not mean the fruit is mature. Once the gift has been identified, it must submit to study, practice, correction, and standards. Raw capacity must now become trustworthy competence. Talent may give you a strong beginning, but competence determines whether people can depend on your result. That is the second system. Develop. Development is the intentional conversion of time, attention, practice, and correction into increased capability. It is how raw capacity becomes reliable performance. The gift may be present at birth, but skill is built through discipline. Natural ability can be dangerous when it makes the beginning too easy. A person succeeds early, receives praise, and begins to believe that preparation is unnecessary. They avoid fundamentals because fundamentals feel ordinary. They resist instruction because correction feels like an insult. They depend on last-minute effort because talent has rescued them before. But what rescued you at one level may embarrass you at the next. A gift can attract an opportunity that your character and competence are not prepared to sustain. That is why increased responsibility must be preceded by increased capacity. You do not prepare after the door opens. You prepare so that when the door opens, you can remain in the room. Write down this development cycle. Study, practice, correction, repetition. First, study the principles. Do not merely imitate visible results. Learn why the work succeeds. Understand its structure, language, standards, and governing laws. Second, practice a specific component. Do not attempt to improve everything at once. The communicator works on clarity. The designer works on composition. The leader works on listening. The builder works on accuracy. Specific practice produces specific growth. Third, receive honest correction. You cannot see every weakness from inside your own performance. Find someone credible enough to recognize the standard and courageous enough to tell you the truth. Fourth, repeat the work at a higher level. Correction without repetition becomes information. Correction applied through repetition becomes competence. Now here is a practical discipline. Protect 1 hour each day for your future. 1 hour without unnecessary notifications, casual consumption, public announcements, or 10 competing goals. Read, study, build, rehearse, review, improve. That hour may appear insignificant, but accumulated hours produce visible mastery. People often call the results sudden because they never saw the private investment. And keep the promise small enough to sustain. Do not promise yourself 5 hours every day when you have never protected 20 minutes. Choose a commitment that requires discipline but can survive a difficult day. Then keep it. Every fulfilled commitment tells your mind, my decisions have authority. Every broken promise teaches the opposite. Self-trust is not built by speaking confidently. It is built when behavior repeatedly agrees with intention. But listen carefully. Repetition alone does not guarantee improvement. You can repeat the same mistake for 10 years and merely become experienced at doing it incorrectly. Deliberate practice isolates weakness. It measures performance. It seeks correction. It changes the method. Practice what exposes you, not only what impresses you. When an attempt fails, do not turn the event into an identity. Failure is information. Ask, was my preparation inadequate? Was my technique weak? Did the environment reveal a limitation? Did my judgment fail? What must change before the next attempt? Experience does not automatically produce wisdom. Examined experience produces wisdom. And stop comparing your beginning with another person's maturity. Your standard is not their applause, platform, or timeline. Measure today's performance against yesterday's ability and against the quality required by those who may eventually depend on your work. Development also requires energy. An exhausted mind cannot sustain deep attention. Rest is not the enemy of discipline. Properly managed rest protects discipline. Guard your health. Establish boundaries. Refuse distractions that consume the strength your assignment requires. You cannot give your best through a life that is permanently depleted. Now take a page and write 4 things. Name 1 competence gap. Name 1 credible teacher or source of correction. Name 1 measurable standard that would prove improvement. Then name 1 daily practice you will protect for the next 30 days. Be precise. I will get better is not a plan. What will you study? What will you practice? How long will you practice it? What result will you measure? When will you review the evidence? Potential describes what may be possible. Disciplined competence makes a promise your gift can actually keep. But competence raises another question. Becoming good at something is not the final purpose of becoming good. Skill that terminates on the skilled person becomes self-admiration. So now we must ask, who is this competence designed to help, and what human need should it be directed toward? A person can become highly skilled and still remain largely irrelevant. Why? Because competence becomes valuable only when it is aimed at a condition that needs to change. That is the third system, direct. Value is not merely ability. Value is ability applied to a meaningful problem for a recognizable person. If your competence has no beneficiary, no problem, and no intended result, it may be impressive, but it is not yet purposeful. This is where self-expression must become service. Self-expression asks, did people notice me? Service asks, did people receive help? Self-expression wants an audience. Service accepts an assignment. Expression may display what is inside you, but service converts what is inside you into improvement outside you. Write down 3 questions. Who specifically needs this ability? What condition are they struggling with? What observable improvement should my contribution produce? Do not answer with everybody. Everybody is not a usable definition of a beneficiary. A contribution designed vaguely for everyone is often useful to no one. Name the person, understand the condition, define the change. Consider 2 equally gifted communicators. The first spends most of his energy announcing his talent, defending his importance, and searching for an audience large enough to admire him. He speaks beautifully, but he has not studied the people listening. He knows what he wants to say, but he does not know what they need to understand. The second communicator listens before speaking. She notices a group of capable people repeatedly struggling to understand a difficult subject. She studies their questions, their language, their limitations, and their goals. Then she shapes her ability into a lesson that makes the complex understandable. Both possess talent, only one has directed it. The first says, look at my gift. The second says, let my gift help you move. That is the difference between display and contribution. Listening, therefore, is not passive. Listening is leadership intelligence. Observation is not inactivity. Observation reveals where your competence should be applied. If you talk continuously, you may prove that you have knowledge while missing the problem your knowledge was meant to solve. Sometimes the gifted person must become silent long enough to hear the assignment. Now do not wait until you can build the complete institution, perfect product, or global platform. Create what I call a minimum useful contribution. Not the smallest thing you can produce carelessly, the smallest complete thing that can create genuine value. It may be one lesson that produces understanding, one service that removes a recurring burden, one tool that saves time, one experience that restores confidence, one practical solution that moves a person from confusion to clarity. Make it small enough to test and meaningful enough to matter. Then ask for feedback. What worked? What remained confusing? Where did the person struggle? What would make the result more useful? Feedback is not automatically rejection. It is intelligence from the field of service. If your purpose is to help people, then their experience must matter more than your attachment to your first version. Correction refines competence. Feedback refines usefulness. As you become more useful, opportunity gains a reason to find you. People remember those who solve problems with excellence. Reliability creates trust. Trust creates responsibility. Responsibility expands influence. Do not chase recognition while neglecting value. Become so useful that your contribution answers a question people are already asking. But direction also requires refusal. Every request is not your assignment. Every invitation is not your opportunity. Every urgent demand does not deserve your best energy. If you say yes to everything, you scatter the strength needed to produce your most meaningful contribution. Purpose gives your gift direction, and direction gives you permission to say no. Now, complete this sentence. I use my developed ability to help this kind of person move from this condition to this better condition. Write it clearly. Refine it until the beneficiary, problem, and result are unmistakable. Your gift now has somewhere to go. Your competence now has someone to serve. But one successful act of service is only evidence that value can be created. It is not yet lasting impact. If the result appears only when your mood is right, your energy is high, and circumstances are perfect, people still cannot depend on it. The next system must turn useful service into reliable delivery. Delivery is the ability to produce promised value at a dependable standard. Not once, not accidentally, not only when you feel inspired. Dependability means the contribution survives changing moods, difficult days, growing demand, and imperfect circumstances. One excellent event proves that something can happen. A trustworthy system makes it likely to happen again. That is the fourth system. Deliver. Many gifted people live from event to event. They wait for pressure, rush the preparation, produce something impressive, collapse afterward, and then repeat the crisis. People applaud the outcome, but they do not see the disorder supporting it. That is not sustainable excellence. That is talent rescuing weak stewardship. A system is not merely technology or paperwork. A system is an organized method that protects a valuable result from preventable confusion. Take your contribution and map it from beginning to end. What must enter the process? What preparation is required? What actions produce the value? Where does responsibility pass from one person to another? What does a finished result look like? What follow-up confirms that the beneficiary was actually served? Do not keep the whole method inside your head. Put it on paper. Create a calendar rhythm. Build a checklist. Prepare a template. Document the essential steps. Define the quality standard. Systems do not eliminate judgment. They eliminate unnecessary confusion so judgment can be reserved for decisions that genuinely require wisdom. You should not spend creative energy remembering the same basic step every week. Preserve your mind for the work only your mind can do. Now, delivery requires stewardship in 5 areas. First, steward time. Separate maintenance from development and delivery. Maintenance keeps today functioning. Development increases tomorrow's capacity. Delivery fulfills the present promise. If urgent requests consume every hour, you may remain busy while your future quietly disappears. Put important work on the calendar before distraction puts something else there. Second, steward energy. Identify the hours when your concentration is strongest, then protect them from needless interruption. Do not give your clearest mind to casual consumption and leave your exhausted mind for your assignment. Schedule recovery before collapse demands it. Rest is not abandonment of purpose. Proper rest restores the instrument through which purpose is expressed. Third, steward money. Know what it actually costs to produce the contribution. Track the tools, materials, training, labor, maintenance, and time required. Growth without financial understanding can increase activity while destroying stability. Expansion is not success if every new opportunity weakens your ability to serve well. Fourth, steward relationships. Clarify expectations. Honor commitments. Receive correction. Communicate before confusion becomes resentment. Do not sacrifice the trust of faithful people for the temporary excitement of greater visibility. A contribution can survive a technical mistake more easily than it can survive a pattern of broken trust. Fifth, steward reputation. Your words and your results must agree. Promise carefully. If a delay occurs, communicate truthfully. If you fail, correct the failure. Do not hide behind a speech, an excuse, or a long explanation. Reliability is integrity made visible over time. Then, establish a review rhythm. At the end of the day or project, ask 4 questions. Did this create the intended value? Did it meet the standard? Did it use resources wisely? What part of the process must change before we repeat it? Reflection is not condemnation. Reflection is conversion. It converts experience into information, information into understanding, and understanding into improved behavior. Without examination, the same mistake can return wearing a different date. You can be exhausted and still have made no progress. You can complete many tasks and still neglect the one result that mattered. Activity measures motion. Review measures direction. Now listen carefully. Never scale disorder. Greater demand does not repair weak processes. It magnifies them. More customers magnify poor communication. More responsibility magnifies careless preparation. More money magnifies weak stewardship. More people magnify unclear ownership. If the foundation is confused, growth simply builds a larger expression of confusion. So ask yourself, where does my contribution most often break? Is it preparation, focus, execution, communication, quality, follow-up, resource management? Name the breaking point. Do not protect it with excuses. Improve it with a process. Perhaps you need a preparation checklist. Perhaps you need a protected delivery block. Perhaps you need a clearer standard before work begins. Perhaps you need to communicate expectations in writing. Perhaps you need a weekly financial review. Perhaps you need 10 quiet minutes each evening to ask whether the day moved the contribution forward. Small systems protect significant gifts. Write down this principle. What is not scheduled competes with distraction. What is not measured begins to drift. What is not reviewed repeats its mistakes. When stewardship becomes disciplined, your contribution can survive increased responsibility, greater demand, and wider opportunity. People no longer receive value only when you have an exceptional day. They receive it because you have built a trustworthy way to serve. But even an excellent delivery system has a final limitation. If every decision, every skill, and every result must still pass through you, then your impact cannot grow beyond your personal time and energy. A contribution becomes lasting only when its principles, standards, and capacity can be reproduced through other people. The fifth system is duplicate. Multiplication is not merely finding assistants to carry your workload. Multiplication is the transfer of understanding, responsibility, and capability until other people can produce value with mature judgment. There is a difference between an indispensable performer and a multiplying leader. The indispensable performer must remain at the center of everything. Every decision requires that person. Every problem waits for that person. Every result depends on that person. That may look important, but it is actually a limitation. If everything stops when you stop, you have built dependence, not leadership. The multiplying leader develops people who understand the purpose, preserve the standard, exercise judgment, and extend the contribution beyond the leader's personal reach. Write this down. Leadership is not measured by how many people need you. Leadership is measured by how many people become capable because you serve them. Lasting impact requires generosity with knowledge. Some people protect their methods because secret knowledge makes them feel powerful. They explain only enough to keep others dependent. They delegate labor but retain understanding. That preserves control, but it confines the contribution to one mind, one schedule, and one lifetime. Knowledge hidden for control cannot multiply for service. So begin by documenting the contribution. Record the steps, but also explain the principles. Steps tell a person what to do. Principles reveal why it works. If someone knows only the steps, an unexpected situation will paralyze them. But when they understand the governing principle, they can adapt without betraying the purpose. Then build an apprenticeship path. First, let the person observe the work. Second, let them assist with the work. Third, let them perform while you supervise. Fourth, let them perform independently. Fifth, require them to teach the process to someone else. Observation produces familiarity. Assistance produces participation. Supervision produces correction. Independence produces responsibility. Teaching produces multiplication. Now notice this. Delegation is not dumping. Dumping says, take this problem away from me. Delegation says, here is the outcome we must produce. Here is why it matters. Here are the resources available. Here is the authority you possess. Here is the standard. And here is when we will review the result. Delegation without context creates confusion. Responsibility without authority creates frustration. Authority without accountability creates disorder. Mature delegation holds all three together: clarity, freedom, and review. Quality must still be protected. Show people what excellence looks like. Provide examples. Establish feedback loops. Correct early enough to prevent small errors from becoming habits. But correction must develop judgment, not create fear. If people are terrified of making a decision without you, you have not trained leaders. You have trained dependents. And do not make the mistake of trying to produce copies of your personality. Reproduction is not cloning. The purpose must remain. The principles must remain. The standard must remain. But another person may express them through different strengths, language, experience, and creativity. If the result meets the purpose at the standard, difference is not disloyalty. This is where many leaders face an internal battle. They say they want others to grow, but become uncomfortable when someone performs differently or perhaps performs better. They fear losing importance. They confuse being needed with being valuable. So they keep every critical decision, withhold information, and rescue people before those people can develop judgment. Listen carefully. If your identity depends on everyone remaining weaker than you, you are not leading them. You are using their dependence to protect your insecurity. A true leader does not become smaller when another person becomes capable. The leader's contribution has multiplied. So ask the succession question. If I were absent for an extended period, could this work continue? Could it maintain its quality? Could it adapt to new conditions? Could it still serve people without waiting for my return? If the answer is no, do not feel condemned, feel instructed. You have located the next leadership assignment. Write down 3 things now. Name 1 principle you can teach. Name 1 responsibility you can release. Name 1 developing person you can intentionally prepare. Do not merely give that person a task. Give them understanding. Give them a standard. Give them room to practice, permission to think, and correction that strengthens their judgment. This is the final transformation of the gift. What began as capacity inside one person becomes competence, service, a dependable system, and finally capability inside others. The gift is no longer limited to your hands. The fruit now carries seed. Now return to the complete formula. Discover, develop, direct, deliver, duplicate. Each stage has a different purpose, and each stage can become a bottleneck. So the question is no longer whether you have potential. The question is, at which stage is your potential presently being stopped? Let us put the entire map together. Say it with me. Discover, develop, direct, deliver, duplicate. Imagine a communicator who notices that whenever difficult ideas confuse a group, people repeatedly ask for an explanation. That recurring effectiveness suggests a gift. Discovery answers, what is in me? But recognition is only the beginning. The communicator studies structure, practices clarity, receives correction, and measures whether listeners truly understand. Development answers, can I perform this well? Then the communicator identifies a particular group struggling with a specific learning problem and shapes the skill around that need. Direction answers, who needs this and what change should it produce? Next, the communicator builds lessons, templates, schedules, feedback methods, and quality standards so the result does not depend on last-minute inspiration. Delivery answers. Can I produce this value consistently? Finally, other teachers are trained to understand the principles, carry the standard, and improve the program. Duplication answers. Can others reproduce this value? 1 gift, 5 systems, 1 movement from capacity to contribution. Now, locate your bottleneck. Perhaps you are stuck at discovery. You experiment with many identities but never remain with anything long enough to collect evidence. Your next step is not another announcement. Test 1 capacity through a real assignment. Perhaps you are stuck at development. Your public ambition is larger than your private competence. You desire visibility, but you have neglected study, practice, and correction. Schedule deliberate practice. Perhaps you are stuck at direction. Your skill is polished and people admire it, but you cannot name the beneficiary or the condition your work changes. Interview someone you believe you are called to serve. Listen until you understand the need in that person's language. Perhaps you are stuck at delivery. Your work helps people, but the result is unpredictable. Everything depends on memory, mood, emergency, effort, and personal rescue. Document 1 process from preparation through follow-up. Or perhaps you are stuck at duplication. The contribution works, but growth stops with you because you will not release responsibility, teach the method, or trust developing people. Select 1 person and begin preparing them. Do not take shortcuts. Visibility before competence creates a reputation your ability cannot support. Expansion before stewardship creates a larger version of your disorder. Delegation before standards reproduces confusion. Sequence protects the gift. And do not attempt all 5 stages tomorrow morning. That often produces excitement without change. Find the first broken connection. Work there. 1 accurate diagnosis is more useful than 10 emotional promises. Write this sentence. My present stage is, my next discipline is. If you need discovery, test the gift. If you need development, schedule the practice. If you need direction, study the beneficiary. If you need delivery, document the process. If you need duplication, train the person. Now your potential has a map and your motivation has an assignment, but this is bigger than your personal advancement. While a gift remains unidentified, undeveloped, misdirected, unreliable, or trapped inside 1 person, there are people who remain undeserved. Someone is still waiting for the value your disciplined contribution could release. The world cannot benefit from the capacity you merely admire, announce, or imagine. A seed celebrated in storage still feeds no one. Your gift must enter the process that converts possibility into contribution. So hear the 5 commands one final time. Discover what is present. Develop it through discipline. Direct it toward a genuine need. Deliver it through faithful stewardship. Duplicate it by preparing other people. Do not leave this as an inspiring sequence. Make it a personal assignment. Write 1 sentence now. My present stage is, my next discipline is, and when I follow through, these people will benefit. Give the gift a stage. Give the stage a discipline. Give the discipline a beneficiary. Now make a 30-day commitment. Protect a recurring block of focused time. Keep 1 measurable promise during that time. At the end of each day, review your progress honestly. Did you practice? Did you create? Did you serve? Did you improve the process? Did you prepare someone else? And before those 30 days end, produce visible evidence appropriate to your stage. If you are discovering, complete a real test. If you are developing, demonstrate measurable improvement. If you are directing, serve a defined beneficiary. If you are delivering, establish a repeatable process. If you are duplicating, prepare another person to carry responsibility. Say this aloud. My gift is not an ornament. My time is not unlimited. Discipline is not punishment. Service is the reason my capacity must grow. Imagine what becomes possible when what was hidden in you is developed faithfully. Someone understands because you learned to communicate. Someone advances because you built a dependable solution. Someone becomes capable because you refuse to keep your knowledge locked inside yourself. Your growth becomes their strength. Your discipline becomes their opportunity. Your contribution becomes seed in another life. May you receive clarity to recognize what has been entrusted to you. humility to remain teachable, courage to serve before applause arrives, wisdom to steward time and resources, and generosity to prepare others for responsibility. You were not given potential merely to possess it. You were given potential to convert it into competence, into service, into systems, into people, and into a contribution that continues moving after it leaves your hands. A fulfilled life is not simply a life that contained great possibility. It is a life that transformed possibility into value and released that value so others could carry it forward.